Admiral Kethvar sat in his command chair on the bridge of the Zelani starship. His blue skin glowed softly in the dim light as he watched the screens around him. The ship was floating in space near a small blue planet called Earth. The humans who lived there had just joined the Galactic Council, and everyone was curious about them. "Sir, we are picking up strange signals from the planet," said Lieutenant Velanok, his communications officer. The young Zelani had large black eyes that sparkled with excitement. They seemed to be broadcasting something to their entire world. Kethvar leaned forward in his chair. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered. The crew gathered around to watch as colorful images filled the display. They saw creatures that looked like humans, but they were doing something very odd. The humans were wearing bright-colored clothing and running around a green field. Some of them carried an oval-shaped object and ran with it while others tried to stop them. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans threw themselves at each other with great force. "What are they doing?" asked Dr. Yiltham, the ship's science officer. He was a tall, thin creature with gray skin and forearms. His species, the Vorthik, were known for being very smart, but not very strong. On the screen, they watched a human named Jake Morrison catch the oval object and run toward a white line. Other humans chased after him, and one of them jumped on his back, bringing him down to the ground. Both humans hit the dirt hard, but then they got up and seemed happy about it. "This must be some kind of performance," said Kethvar slowly. "Look how they pretend to be hurt, but then they smile and celebrate." The broadcast changed to show different humans doing other strange things. They watched a woman named Lisa Carter hit a small white ball with a stick, then run in a circle while other humans tried to catch the ball. When someone finally caught it, they threw it to another human who touched a white square on the ground. Lisa Carter was declared out, but she did not seem upset. "Fascinating," whispered Dr. Yiltham. "They create elaborate stories where they pretend to compete against each other. This must be their form of theater." A next scene showed humans on ice, wearing sharp metal blades on their feet. They carried long sticks and chased a small black disc around the ice. A human named Danny Rogers skated very fast and crashed into another human, pushing him against a wall. Both humans fell down, but then they got up and continued playing. "Look at their costumes," pointed out Lieutenant Velanok. "They wear thick padding and helmets. This must be to make their performances look more realistic." The aliens were amazed by what they saw. These humans seemed to enjoy creating stories where they fought and competed with each other. They wore special clothes and used props to make it look dangerous, but it was clearly just acting. The screen showed more scenes. Humans were jumping very high to put a round ball through a metal ring. They ran into each other and fell down, but they always got back up. A human named Amy Peterson was shown running for a very long time, sweating and breathing hard, but she kept going until she crossed the finish line. "She is very good at pretending to be tired," observed Dr. Yiltham. "Notice how she acts like she is in pain, but she continues anyway. These humans are excellent performers." Captain Roy Martinez of the human diplomatic ship had been invited to watch the broadcast with the alien crew. He listened to their comments with growing worry. The aliens were completely wrong about what they were seeing, but they seemed so sure of themselves. "Actually," Roy tried to explain, "these are real competitions. The humans are not acting. They are really trying to win." The aliens looked at him with surprise. Admiral Kethvar laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You humans are so modest about your art," he said. "These performances are wonderful. The way they make it look so real is amazing." "But it is real," Roy insisted. "They train for years to be able to do these things. Some of them get hurt." Dr. Yiltham shook his head. "Impossible. No species would voluntarily hurt themselves for Entertainment. This is clearly very advanced acting. The broadcast continued to show more human activities. They watched boxing, where two humans hit each other with padded gloves. They saw wrestling, where humans grabbed each other and tried to force their opponent to the ground. They watched swimming races where humans moved through water as fast as they could. "The variety is incredible," said Lieutenant Velenak. "They have so many different types of performances. Some are in water, some on land, some on ice. They use different props and costumes for each story." The aliens were completely fascinated by what they thought was human theater. They took notes and recorded everything they saw. They wanted to understand this new form of entertainment so they could create their own versions. Admiral Kethver made a decision. "We must report this to the Galactic Council," he said. "These humans have created something wonderful. We should share this with all the species in the galaxy." Captain Martinez tried one more time to explain. "Please understand, these are not performances. These are real sports. The humans are really competing." But the aliens were not listening. They were too excited about their discovery. They began making plans to show the broadcasts to other species and to create their own versions of human theater. As the Zelani ship prepared to leave Earth's orbit, the aliens were already imagining how they would perform their own versions of human sports. They had no idea that they were about to make a terrible mistake that would change everything they thought they knew about humans. The discovery that would shake the entire galaxy had begun with a simple misunderstanding about human entertainment. The news of human performance art spread quickly through the galaxy. Within 3 months, the Galactic Council had built a massive sports complex on the neutral planet of Nexus Prime. The building was huge, with different areas for different types of human activities. Aliens from dozens of worlds came to watch and participate in what they called the Galactic Sports League. Commander Lisa Brooks arrived at the complex on a transport ship filled with human diplomats and observers. She was a tall woman with short, brown hair and worried eyes. As she walked through the main entrance, she could see aliens everywhere, all excited about trying human sports. The Trilaxians had formed a basketball team. They were short, green creatures with very long arms and legs. Their team captain, Vex Arn, was bouncing a basketball with perfect form. He had watched hundreds of hours of human basketball games and could copy every move he had seen. "Watch this," Vizarn said to his teammates. He dribbled the ball between his legs and behind his back, just like he had seen human players do. The other Trilaxians clapped their hands, which made a sound like snapping twigs. But when the practice game started, something went wrong. Vexarn ran down the court for only 30 seconds before he fell to the ground, breathing very hard. His green skin turned a pale yellow color, and he could not get up. "This acting is much harder than it looks," he gasped to his teammates. "How do humans pretend to be so tired for such a long time?" The team medic, Dr. Ziltok, rushed over with a breathing mask. "You are pushing your performance too far," he said. "Remember, this is just acting. You do not need to make it so realistic." In another part of the complex, the Korath had formed a football team. The Korath were huge gray creatures that looked like walking rocks. Their team captain, Gronth, weighed almost 400 pounds and was 8 feet tall. He was sure his team would be the best at this human performance art. Steve Nelson, a human coach who had volunteered to help, watched the Korath practice with growing concern. "You need to build up your strength slowly," he tried to explain. "Start with light exercises and work your way up." Gronth laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. "Silly human, we are just pretending to be strong. Watch how well we can act." The Korath team lined up for their first play. When the ball was snapped, they ran at each other with great force. The sound of their collision was like a small explosion. Both teams fell to the ground, and did not get up for several minutes. "Excellent performance," wheezed one of the Koroth players. "We looked very realistic when we pretended to be hurt." But Dr. Fengal, the Koroth team doctor, was not happy. 3 of his players had real injuries from the collision. "This is not acting," he said quietly to himself. "Something is wrong here." The Etherians had decided to try baseball. They were small, fragile creatures that looked like they were made of glass. Their skin was clear, and you could see their internal organs glowing softly inside their bodies. They moved very slowly and spoke in whispers. Their team captain, Softwing, stood at home plate with a baseball bat. The bat was almost as big as he was, and he could barely lift it. The pitcher, another Etherian named Gentle Breeze, threw the ball as softly as possible. Even this gentle throw was too much for Softwing. When the ball touched his bat, the vibration knocked him over. He fell to the ground like a dropped mirror, his clear skin showing cracks of stress. "This human theater is very dangerous," Softwing whispered to his teammates. "They must be much braver than we thought to pretend to do such violent things." Commander Brooks watched all of this with growing alarm. She tried to explain to the alien officials that these were not performances, but real competitions that required training and conditioning. "You do not understand," she told Ambassador Zinktull of the Vorthik. "Humans train for years to be able to play these sports safely. You cannot just start playing without preparation." But Zinktull was not listening. He was too excited about his own team's performance. The Vorthik had formed a soccer team, and they were practicing on the main field. They were thin, gray creatures with 4 arms and very large heads. The Vorthik team ran around the field, kicking the ball to each other. They had perfect form because they had studied human soccer games very carefully. But after only 10 minutes of running, half the team was lying on the ground, unable to continue. "This is the most realistic acting I have ever seen," Zinktull said proudly. "Look how they pretend to be exhausted. They are even sweating and breathing hard." Dr. Sarah Kim, the human medical officer at the complex, was very busy. She had to treat alien after alien for what she quickly realized were real injuries and exhaustion. The aliens kept insisting they were just acting, but their bodies were showing real signs of stress and damage. "You need to stop and rest," she told a Trilaxian basketball player who had collapsed during practice. "Your body is really tired, not pretending to be tired." The Trilaxian looked confused. "But humans do this all the time for fun," he said. "If they can act like this, why cannot we?" Dr. Kim tried to explain the difference, but the alien would not listen. None of them would listen. They were all convinced that humans were just better actors than they were. The first official game was scheduled for the next day. It would be basketball, with the Trilaxians playing against the Vorthik. Thousands of aliens had bought tickets to watch what they thought would be an amazing performance. As the day of the first game approached, the human observers became more and more worried. They could see that the aliens had no idea what they were getting into. The aliens thought they were preparing for a theatrical performance, but they were actually about to engage in real physical competition without any proper training. "Commander," Brooks called an emergency meeting with the human staff. "We have to stop this," she said. "These aliens are going to hurt themselves badly." But Captain Martinez shook his head. "We have tried to warn them, but they will not listen. They think we are just being modest about our acting abilities." The aliens continued their preparations, completely unaware that they were about to discover something that would change their understanding of humanity forever. They thought they were just copying human theater, but they were about to learn that human sports were not performances at all. The stage was set for a disaster that would reveal the true nature of human physical capabilities to the entire galaxy. The first official game of the Galactic Sports League was set to begin. Thousands of aliens filled the seats of the huge arena, excited to watch what they believed would be the greatest performance in galactic history. The Trilaxian basketball team faced off against the Vorthic squad, both teams wearing colorful uniforms that they thought were costumes. Ambassador Zinktel sat in the front row, his 4 arms folded with pride. "Today, we show the galaxy that we can match human creativity," he announced to the crowd. The aliens cheered, their various sounds creating a symphony of excitement. On the court, Vexarn held the basketball with his long green arms. He had practiced this moment hundreds of times, studying every move that human players made. As the game began, he dribbled the ball and started running toward the basket. But something went wrong almost immediately. After just 20 seconds of running, Vexarn's legs began to shake. His green skin turned pale, and he could barely breathe. He tried to keep going, thinking this was all part of the performance, but his body would not obey. "Keep acting," shouted his teammate Lixmore from across the court. "Make it look realistic." Vexarn attempted a simple jump shot, but his legs gave out completely. He crashed to the floor, the basketball rolling away as he gasped for air. The crowd thought this was amazing acting and cheered loudly. On the other side of the court, the Vorthak team was having similar problems. Their captain, Yilsek, tried to steal the ball from a fallen Trilaxian player, but the simple act of running and bending down made him dizzy. His large head felt heavy, and his thin gray body began to tremble. Dr. Sarah Kim rushed onto the court from the sidelines. She had been watching with growing alarm as both teams struggled with what she recognized as real physical exhaustion. "Stop the game," she called out to the referees. "These players need medical attention." But the alien referees thought this was part of the show. "The human is joining the performance," announced the head referee, a crystal-like being from the young shard worlds. How creative. Dr. Kim knelt beside Vexarn, checking his pulse and breathing. His heart was racing, and his body temperature was dangerously high. "You are not acting," she told him firmly. "You are really exhausted. Your body cannot handle this level of activity." Vexarn looked at her with confusion in his large black eyes. "But humans do this all the time," he whispered. "If this is just acting, why does it hurt so much?" Before Dr. Kim could answer, there was a loud crash from the other side of the court. 2 Vorthic players had collided while trying to get the ball. They lay on the ground, not moving, their gray skin showing dark patches where they had hit each other. The crowd fell silent. Even though they thought this was performance art, the collision looked very real and very painful. Some aliens in the audience began to worry that the acting was too realistic. Emergency medical teams rushed onto the court. Dr. Melkorin, the Trilaxian team physician, examined his fallen players with growing concern. "This is not normal," he said quietly to his assistant. "Their bodies are showing signs of real stress and injury." Meanwhile, in another part of the complex, the Epherian hockey team was having their own crisis. They had been practicing what they thought was a gentle performance on ice, but even their careful movements were too much for their fragile bodies. Softwing, the Epherian goalie, stood in front of the net, wearing what he thought was a costume. A thick padding felt heavy on his clear, glass-like body. When his teammate Gentlebreeze took a gentle shot at the goal, the puck moved much faster than expected. The puck hit Softwing in the chest, and there was a terrible cracking sound. His clear skin showed dark lines spreading from the impact. Point. He fell to the ice and did not get up. "This is not acting," whispered Whispertone, another Epherian player. "Softwing is really hurt." The Epherian medical team rushed onto the ice. Dr. Clearsight examined Softwing and found that the impact had damaged his internal structure. "We need to get him to a medical facility immediately," she said. "This injury is real." News of the injury spread quickly through the complex. Alien medical teams from dozens of worlds were suddenly overwhelmed with patients. The Korath football team had suffered multiple injuries during their practice game. The Vorthik soccer team had collapsed from exhaustion. Even the gentle Etherian baseball team had players with stress fractures from swinging bats. Lieutenant Colonel Pete Johnson received emergency communications from medical facilities across the galaxy. "We have a crisis," reported Dr. Healingtuck. "From the Centauri Medical Center. We have received over 200 injured aliens in the past hour, all claiming they were just acting in human performances." The truth was beginning to dawn on the galactic community. These were not performances at all. The humans had been engaging in real physical competitions that required actual strength, endurance, and skill. Dr. Mel Corain contacted human medic Rachel Stone in desperation. "We do not understand," he transmitted from his overcrowded medical bay. "Your species regularly participates in activities that cause real bodily harm. This is beyond our comprehension." Rachel Stone tried to explain over the communication link. "These are sports, not performances. Humans train for years to build the strength and endurance needed to play them safely. You cannot just start playing without proper preparation." But the damage was already done. Across the galaxy, aliens were discovering that what they thought was human theater was actually evidence of incredible physical capability. The Galactic Council called an emergency session as reports of injured aliens flooded in from every world. Ambassador Helen Clark arrived at the council chambers to find chaos. Alien delegates were arguing loudly about the deception of human sports broadcasts. Some accused humans of deliberately hiding the true nature of their activities. "We tried to warn you," Helen said to the assembled crowd. "We told you these were real competitions, but you would not listen. You insisted they were performances." Admiral Kethfer stood up, his blue skin now pale with shock. "You mean to tell us that humans actually engage in physical combat for entertainment? That they voluntarily hurt themselves for recreation?" "Not combat," Helen corrected. "Competition. And we train extensively to minimize injuries. What you saw was the result of years of preparation and conditioning." The alien delegates sat in stunned silence as the implications sank in. If humans treated extreme physical activity as entertainment, what were their actual capabilities? What did this mean for their understanding of human strength and endurance? Dr. Yulfelm, who had first studied the human broadcasts, stood up slowly. "We have made a terrible mistake," he said quietly. "We thought we were copying human art, but we were actually attempting to match human physical capabilities without any preparation." The Galactic Sports League was immediately suspended. Medical ships were dispatched to every world to treat the injured aliens. The galaxy was beginning to realize that they had seriously underestimated the species they had welcomed into their community. The truth about human physical capabilities was spreading like wildfire through the galactic communication networks. The species that had seemed relatively weak and new to the galaxy were actually incredibly strong and resilient. Their entertainment was more physically demanding than most species' military training. As the medical crisis continued, one question echoed through the minds of every alien leader. If this was how humans entertained themselves, what were they truly capable of when they were serious? General Thokmar of the Galactic Defense Force sat in his office, staring at the medical reports from the failed sports league. The massive, armored creature had commanded armies across the galaxy for over 50 years. His species, the Draknari, were considered among the most formidable warriors in known space. But the reports in front of him made him question everything he thought he knew about military capability. "Computer, display human sports injury statistics," he commanded in his deep, rumbling voice. The holographic display showed thousands of data points about human athletic injuries. What disturbed him most was not the number of injuries, but how quickly humans recovered and returned to their activities. A human basketball player named Kevin Walsh had broken his arm during a game. The report showed that he was back on the court within 6 weeks, playing at full intensity. A Draknari warrior with the same injury would need months of recovery before returning to light duty. This cannot be correct, Thokmar muttered. He had assumed that humans were a weak species that had somehow developed advanced technology. But if their recreational activities were more physically demanding than his elite training programs, what did that say about their actual military capabilities? He activated his communication system and contacted Colonel Jake Phillips, the human military liaison to the Galactic Council. Colonel, I need to speak with you about human military training. The recent events have raised some questions. Colonel Phillips appeared on the holographic display, his weathered face showing concern. General, I was expecting this call. What do you need to know? Your species treats extreme physical activity as entertainment, Thokmar said directly. I need to understand your actual military capabilities. Phillips was quiet for a moment. General, I should warn you that our military training is significantly more intense than our sports. What you saw in the sports broadcasts was just recreation. Show me, Thokmar demanded. Reluctantly, Phillips transmitted basic human military training footage. The general watched as young humans like Kevin Walsh and Jennifer Martinez ran through obstacle courses, carried heavy packs for miles, and performed exercises that would challenge experienced Draknari soldiers. This is your basic training? Thokmar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Not your elite forces? This is just the beginning, Phillips replied. Every human soldier goes through this as a minimum requirement. The footage continued to show human military exercises. Thokmar watched soldiers crawl through mud under barbed wire, climb rope walls, and perform combat drills in extreme weather conditions. What shocked him most was that these were not seasoned warriors, but young recruits who had been civilians just weeks before. How long does this training last? He asked. Basic training is typically 8 to 12 weeks, Phillips answered. Then they move on to specialized training for their military roles. Thokmar's clawed hands gripped his desk. Draknari Basic. Training lasted 2 full years, and their recruits were selected from the strongest members of their society. Yet these human civilians were performing at levels that matched his veteran soldiers after just a few weeks of training. I need to see your special forces training, Thokmar said, though he was beginning to fear the answer. Phillips hesitated. General, I am not sure you want to see that. It might be better if we discuss this in person. But Thokmar insisted. When the footage began to play, he understood Phillips' reluctance. Human special forces operators like Carlos Rodriguez and Dana Taylor were performing feats that seemed impossible. They swam in freezing water, carried enormous weights, and endured conditions that would kill most alien species. These humans volunteer for this training? Thokmar asked in amazement. They compete for the opportunity, Phillips confirmed. We have more volunteers than we can accept. The general's worldview was crumbling. His species had built their reputation on being the galaxy's finest warriors, but these humans were treating warfare preparation as a desirable career choice. Their volunteers were performing at levels that exceeded his best soldiers. Show me your combat sports, Thokmar requested, though he was almost afraid to ask. The footage of human boxing and mixed martial arts competitions left the general speechless. He watched fighters like Carlos Rodriguez and Dana Taylor voluntarily engage in hand-to-hand combat for entertainment. They absorbed punishment that would hospitalize most aliens, then returned to fight again weeks later. Your species fights each other for recreation? Thokmar asked. Combat sports are popular entertainment, Phillips explained. Millions of humans watch these competitions. Thokmar realized that he was watching humans engage in real combat as a form of recreation. The techniques, the conditioning, the mental toughness required, it was all military-grade training disguised as entertainment. "How many humans participate in these combat sports?" he asked. "Millions train in martial arts, boxing, wrestling, and other combat sports," Phillips replied. "It is a common hobby." The implications hit Thokmar like a physical blow. Humans had millions of civilians who trained in combat techniques for fun. Their entire population was essentially a reserve military force that maintained combat readiness. Through recreational activities, he opened a secure channel to the Galactic Defense Force Command Center. "Admiral Kethver, I need you to reclassify human military threat assessment immediately. What level should we assign them?" The Admiral asked. Thokmar looked at the footage still playing on his screen, showing human children practicing martial arts in what they called after-school programs. Even their young were being trained in combat techniques. "Maximum threat level," he said quietly. "We have been completely wrong about this species." The news spread quickly through military channels. Across the galaxy, intelligence officers began re-examining everything they knew about human society. What they had dismissed as entertainment was actually evidence of a species-wide military culture. Dr. Yil Tham was brought in to provide scientific analysis. Based on the data, it appears that human civilization has evolved on a planet so dangerous that military-level fitness and combat readiness are required for basic survival, he reported to the assembled military leaders. "Their sports are not entertainment," he continued. "They are species-wide survival training that maintains the entire population in a state of combat readiness. Every human civilian has been unknowingly preparing for warfare their entire lives." Revelation sent shockwaves through the galactic military establishment. Species that had never considered humans a threat began reassessing their defensive capabilities. Trade negotiations were quietly put on hold as governments tried to understand the implications of having a species of natural warriors in their midst. Admiral Kethver received reports from intelligence services across the galaxy. "Sir, we have intercepted communications from 12 different species. They are all expressing concern about human military capabilities." "What kind of concern?" Kethver asked. "They are questioning whether humans have been deliberately concealing their true strength," the Admiral replied. "Some are suggesting that the sports broadcasts were intentional psychological warfare." But Thokmar knew the truth was even more disturbing. Humans had not been hiding their capabilities. They had been advertising them. They had broadcast their military training to the entire galaxy, calling it entertainment. The fact that no one had recognized it for what it was said, more about galactic intelligence than human deception. As the military implications became clear, one fact stood out above all others. Humanity had not just joined the galactic community as another species. They had arrived as a military superpower that did not even realize its own strength. The galaxy would never be the same. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from 847 different species had gathered in the Great Chamber on Nexus Prime, all struggling to understand what had become known as the Deathworlder Revelation. Ambassador Helen Clark stood at the central podium, flanked by General Patricia Lee and Admiral Chris Thompson. The three humans looked calm, but they could feel the tension in the massive chamber. Thousands of alien eyes watched them with a mixture of fear, respect, and confusion. "Honored delegates," Helen began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "We never intended to deceive anyone. We simply could not understand why you thought our sports were fictional." The Trilaxian delegate, Prime, Minister Flexwing, stood up slowly. His green skin had not fully recovered its normal color since the Sports League disaster. "Ambassador Clark, Your species has fundamentally changed our understanding of biological capability. How do we proceed from here? Helen looked around the chamber at the assembled aliens. Many of them were still recovering from injuries sustained while trying to copy human sports. The Etherian delegation was noticeably smaller, as several of their members remained in medical facilities. We proceed as we always have, Helen replied, with honesty and cooperation. We are the same species we were before you understood the true nature of our recreational activities. But Admiral Kethvar of the Zalani Federation was not satisfied with that answer. With respect, Ambassador, you are not the same species in our understanding. We classified you as a developing civilization with limited physical capabilities. Now we discover that your children engage in activities that would challenge our finest soldiers. General Lee stepped forward. If I may address that point, Admiral, what you observed was not evidence of aggression, but of adaptation. Humans evolved on a planet that required constant physical and mental challenges to survive. Our sports are simply a way to maintain the fitness our ancestors needed. The chamber erupted in discussions as delegates whispered among themselves in dozens of languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with the overlapping conversations. Dr. Yul Tham, now serving as the chief xenobiologist for the entire council, stood to address the chamber. Based on extensive research, we have concluded that Earth is what we must classify as a death world. The environmental pressures on that planet are beyond what most species could survive. He activated a holographic display showing Earth's weather patterns, geological activity, and biological diversity. This planet experiences regular natural disasters, extreme weather variations, and hosts millions of species that have evolved to be highly aggressive. Humans did not just survive on this world, they thrived. The implications were staggering. Humans had not developed advanced technology to overcome their environment. They had evolved to match it. Every aspect of their society, from their recreational activities to their social structures, was designed around surviving on one of the most dangerous planets in known space. Ambassador Zinc Toll of the Vorthik raised a trembling hand. This explains why they treat extreme physical activity as entertainment. It is not entertainment to them. It is necessary maintenance of survival capabilities. The revelation changed everything. Trade agreements were renegotiated as species realized they had been dealing with a civilization far more capable than they had understood. The economic implications alone were enormous. Humans could work in environments that would kill most other species. Captain Roy Martinez, now promoted to Admiral, watched the proceedings from the human observation deck. Below him, he could see alien children playing in the station's recreation areas. They moved carefully, avoiding any activity that might be considered remotely physical. The contrast with human children, who were currently playing soccer in the adjacent human section, was stark. Admiral, said his aide, Lieutenant Commander Beth Cooper, we are receiving requests from 17 different species for human protection. Services. Protection from what? Martinez asked. From each other, sir. It seems that several conflicts have been put on hold while governments reassess their military capabilities in light of human standards. The psychological impact of the revelation was perhaps more significant than the military implications. Species that had spent millennia developing advanced technology to overcome their physical limitations discovered that humans had simply evolved to be physically superior. The Galactic Sports League was permanently disbanded, but its medical costs had bankrupted 3 planetary governments. The insurance claims alone from alien injuries during a brief attempt to copy human sports exceeded the gross domestic product of several star systems. However, the cultural impact was more positive. In some ways, the revelation had sparked a galaxy-wide interest in human culture. Aliens wanted to understand how a species could develop such physical capabilities while maintaining what they saw as remarkable psychological stability. Dr. Sarah Kim, now serving as the head of the new Interspecies Medical Exchange Program, found herself overwhelmed with requests for information about human physiology. "I want to understand everything," she reported to the human leadership. "How we heal so quickly, how we can function under stress, how we maintain mental stability during physical challenges." The questions came from across the galaxy. How did humans develop such high pain tolerance? Why did they seem to enjoy physical challenges that other species found terrifying? How could they maintain social cooperation while engaging in competitive activities? The answers revealed fundamental differences in how humans had evolved compared to other species. Most galactic civilizations had developed by avoiding physical challenges and relying on technology. Humans had evolved by embracing challenges and developing both physical and mental resilience. Commander Lisa Brooks, now serving as the director of the Human Cultural Exchange Program, worked to help other species understand human society. "We are not naturally aggressive," she explained to a group of alien diplomats. "We are naturally competitive." There is a significant difference. The distinction was important. Humans did not seek conflict, but they had evolved to excel at it when necessary. Their sports were not preparation for war. They were channels for competitive instincts that had helped their species survive. The final report from the ASEA, Galactic Council's Investigation Committee, was published 6 months after the Sports League disaster. The document, officially titled Reassessment of Human Capabilities and Threat Classifications, became the most widely read publication in galactic history. The report's conclusions were simple but profound. Human recreational activities should be considered military intelligence. Their concept of entertainment represents training exercises that would challenge our finest warriors. We recommend extreme caution in all future negotiations with this species. But the most significant change was not in military planning or diplomatic protocols. It was in how the galaxy viewed the concept of strength itself. For millennia, galactic civilization had equated advancement with the ability to avoid physical challenges. Humans had proven that there was another path, one that embraced challenge as a source of growth. The economic benefits to humanity were immediate and substantial. Human workers were suddenly in high demand for jobs in dangerous environments. Mining operations, deep space exploration, and hazardous material handling all sought human employees who could work in conditions that would require expensive protective equipment for other species. Admiral Martinez stood on the observation deck of the new Geneva space station, watching human children play soccer while alien observers maintained respectful distances. The aliens were no longer confused about what they were seeing. They understood that these children were casually maintaining physical capabilities that exceeded most adult aliens. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Cooper, approaching with the data pad, "we have received formal requests from 43 species asking for human military advisors." "Military advisors?" Martinez asked with surprise. "They want to learn how to improve their own physical conditioning programs," Cooper explained. Apparently, seeing human capabilities has inspired them to attempt modest improvements to their own fitness standards. Martinez smiled. The galaxy was not just learning to respect human capabilities. They were trying to learn from them. It was a development that no one had expected. The transformation was visible everywhere. Alien diplomatic missions now included physical fitness requirements for staff assigned to work with humans. Medical facilities across the galaxy had updated their equipment to handle what they called human standard injuries, and recovery protocols. Dr. Yil Thum published a follow-up study 6 months later that became almost as famous as the original incident. "Humans represent a unique evolutionary path," he wrote. "While most species developed intelligence to avoid physical challenges, humans developed intelligence to overcome them. This has resulted in a species with both advanced technology and primitive physical capabilities, a combination previously thought impossible. The study sparked philosophical debates across the galaxy about the nature of advancement and civilization. Some species began to question whether their own evolutionary path had made them too dependent on technology, the Trilaxians.